This healer introduces him to aloe vera gel, which makes quick work of his burns. But Rodney, the chemist, wants to know more. What other things could it do? What is the best variety?
You are listening to The Dr. Haley Show, the podcast dedicated to helping you optimize your health. Each episode, there will be an interview or a message to help you discover better health. We will be featuring health radicals on the show to bring new ideas to the table, as well as doubling down on key fundamentals to support you living your best life. Your host is no other than the founder of Haley Nutrition, Dr. Michael Haley.
This is the Dr. Haley Show podcast. And, if I give these two guys introductions, it's too much. Jonathan has way too much education. He's got like 3 degrees in music and all kinds of stuff. And John, the pranic energy healer. Check out one of the other podcasts where I give their credentials. Today, we're going to do a little historical review, the life of Rodney Stockton, the things that we know, and kind of go into John Ortiz's relationship with Rodney Stockton, how he came to know him. Guys, thank you for joining me again. And John Ortiz, I think this talk is critical because people that knew Rodney, well, there's not many of us left. Rodney, if he was alive, let me think, he would be, I don't know, like 115 now or something like that.
Yeah.
His years, they were a long time ago. He passed in 2009 at 96 years old. So, well, that makes the math easier. But you came to know him. You discovered Stockton Aloe. Where, when, how did all that come to happen?
Yeah, I remember there was a patient that I had that came up to me and told me that she had stage 4 cancer and she'd healed herself. And I said, "Oh, you got my attention. How did you heal yourself at stage 4?" She goes, "I drink aloe vera gel." And I'm like, "Okay, what else did you do?" And she goes, No. You don't understand. This is a very special aloe gel. You got to meet my friend Rodney Stockton. And so I was curious, and I said, "Okay." So I took a trip and met him, and he had more energy than I did. And so there was a part of me that just said, "Holy cow, what's he doing here? He's running around like hyperactive, And that's where the journey got started, because I started asking him questions. We had a conversation about aloe vera gel and the history, and we wrote a story about it, Jonathan and I. And I thought we could do what I call an interactive reading, where he would read a paragraph and then we'd have a discussion, paragraph by paragraph. Does that work? Because that kind of gives all the background.
Let's do that. Can I ask you what your patient's name was that told you about him?
Sure. That was Janice Jones. Beautiful soul. You actually referenced her in that original thing, and she had known Rodney 20 years before aloe. So she had a background with Rodney that was, second to none. And she gave me this file of information about Rodney and such, because she was a researcher. And, I'm still looking for that file because I didn't really understand, like, why'd you give it to me? She said, "Well, I think yeah."
In the resources of this show, below the video, underneath the podcast, however you're listening to it, I'm going to make sure I put a link to what I think I have, the Janice Jones video testimonial.
Yeah.
All right. Let's do this interactive story reading.
Okay. This is this is a post on our Substack at triadhealing.com. And this is the first one we did. So the way we worked was John recorded his story into his iPhone, and we transcribed it using the AI transcription, and then I cleaned it up in ChatGPT, and then I ghost wrote it, basically rewrote it, and added some pictures.
All right, let's go to the Substack article. Aloe vera gel, Food of the Gods by John Ortiz with Jonathan Adelson.
All right. Okay, here we go. So the first section is called Janice. Back in the early 2000s, I was living in Florida and working as an energy healer. One day, a client of mine, Janice, claimed she had cured herself of stage 4 cancer. I was intrigued, impressed even. I asked her how she did it. She said She said she did a lot of aloe vera gel. I smiled politely and asked what else she did. She said nothing. That had been the only change she made in her routine. I thought to myself, that must be some magical gel. Where can I get me some of that? Well, it turns out this aloe came from a guy named Rodney, and it wasn't your garden variety health food store aloe either. So,
at this point, because there are a few things to talk about in there.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And one of those things being the only change that she made.
Mm-hmm.
So, a lot of times in science, for instance, you would change one thing, so you know what you can most likely attribute it to. And I have this problem all the time. People will call me up and they'll say, is it possible that that the aloe's giving me diarrhea? Well, not our brand. Other brands might, because the outer leaf, and it's possible, of course, in rare circumstance that this might. What else have you changed? And there's this, list of things, because they're throwing everything they can at it, which I think is actually a good approach when you have a cancer. I think you want to make a lot of changes, cutting out a lot of bad stuff, of course. Anything that's bad, you get rid of it. And then replacing those things with good things. So usually when you're fighting a cancer, there are going to be a lot of changes if you're doing things naturally. But this was her one change. And Rodney used to talk about it like, yeah, just drink 3 glasses of aloe, you'll be fine. I think that's a little bit of a reckless approach. But when I see stories like this isn't the first time I've come across this where it's the only change they had made. So it does sound legit, reputable.
Yeah.
And there will be a link to her telling the story.
Yeah. And I'll say this, is that she was convinced that was the main factor in her healing. She thought, of all the different aspects, she felt like, and we didn't know about microbiome. We didn't know about healing the gut. We didn't know how it worked or why it worked. We just were drinking this food of the gods, which that term came from historical reference to all different civilizations that would have this aloe vera gel. They would call it the food of the gods. So that was the reference of it. Yeah.
All right. That's in the article.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
All right. And this line up here where it says aloe vera gel has been used to help fight cancer.
Yeah.
I think that's accurately stated, meaning people will use it as part of their health regimen. But we got to tell you right now, aloe vera does not cure cancer. There is no cure for cancer. Only you can cure cancer in yourself, in your body, by strengthening your immune system. So aloe vera gel has been used to help fight cancer with a whole bunch of other things like good rest and good thinking. And all right, let's pick it up.
Okay, so now on to Rodney. Let me introduce you to Rodney Stockton. Here's the story that I remember from what Janice and Rodney told me. And by I, it's John. Rodney was originally a chemist in the military. After World War II, he heads west to Arizona. Unaccustomed to the desert sun, he quickly gets a severe sunburn. So Rodney goes to see a Native American healer, as one does when in Arizona. This healer introduces him to aloe vera gel, which makes quick work of his burns. But Rodney, the chemist, wants to know more. What other things could it do? What is the best variety? So then I say, aloe vera gel is well known for treating burns and sunburn.
All right, we may have a conflict in some of that paragraph above there because rumor has it he was vacationing in South Florida when he was sunburned.
Homestead.
And met the Indian man healer that pointed him to aloe. I think he lived in Arizona and vacationed to Florida. But I cannot verify that. But most accounts of this story that I've heard was he was vacationing in Florida.
Which is where he found the aloe. So,
and yes, it definitely grows here very abundantly.
But it grows also in Arizona and Texas and New Mexico. Any place has arid aloe is kind of like an amazing durability in different environments.
It does. It has some durability. It definitely, I think, prefers humidity, though.
Yeah.
Meaning it'll survive on its own without hydration, and it does that by consuming itself. It has a storage of hydration in itself. And over time, the leaves get thin and they start browning as their plants are crying out, saying, "I'm thirsty. Give me some water." So they'll survive in those places, but I believe they like the humidity better.
Yeah.
So my take is that he found the aloe vera farm in Homestead, Florida. But I don't know how many Native American healers reside in Homestead, Florida. So it's more likely to run into a Native American healer in Arizona. So,
well,
anyway, I like John's story better.
I hear you. However, let's go back because we're talking about approximately 1950.
Right.
And Florida used to be all underwater, not all underwater, kind of patchy. And, there were Indians here before we were here.
Yeah.
And they have largely, they have their reservations kind of in central Florida now. Mm-hmm. And I guess, in the deals that we made with them, they own the casinos in Florida, and that's their big revenue sources, even though in the reservations tend to be very, very poor. But there was definitely Indian representation here in Florida, and it will have been a lot more prevalent in that time frame around 1950.
A little side note, one of the historic factors of the indigenous population, Seminole Indians, allegedly never surrendered to the U.S. Army. And the reason they were able to do that because they went into the Everglades. And the U.S. Army was like, okay, you can have that one. We're not going to chase you in there. But they had to discover different ways to live in the swamp. And part of that, I'm sure, was mosquito control. But part of that could have been aloe vera gel, for all we know.
Barbecue gator.
Yeah.
Quite possibly. And yeah, we were also very perimeter in Florida. I've been here in Florida since the late 70s. And I used to live on like the edge of the Everglades. And for fun, we'd go into the Everglades on our, dirt bikes and stuff like that, and pick up trucks, driving in the mud and stuff like that. But that line has pushed further and further towards central Florida. And the Everglades are shrinking as we're expanding out. Point being is Florida was not that occupied, especially in the 50s. When I was here in the 70s, it wasn't nearly as occupied as it is now. Now it's just crowded city.
What about, isn't there a big Air Force base in Homestead?
There is an Air Force
I think it's
base
Patrick.
in South Florida.
Patrick. Yeah, it might be Patrick Air Force Base.
I just wondered if the Homestead is also a military.
I don't know if it's in Homestead or Opelika.
I just remember the name.
Sure.
Homestead Air Force. Yeah. Anyway, I'm speculating.
Yeah.
Okay, let's keep going.
One more point. Aloe vera gel is well known for treating burns and sunburn. Yes, and more recently, not only burns on the outside, but a burn is like an ulceration, and ulcerative colitis. We think of inflamed, burning bowels, so people consume it to heal their bowels.
Yeah, true. Heals you from the inside out. And one idea that stuck with me is that the skin is an organ and the digestive tract is continuous with the skin. So your digestive tract is also the organ of your skin, and what is good for your outside skin is good for your inside skin, and that everything it's essential. It's inside your physical body, but it's not inside your chemical body. It's still being external.
Yeah. One side thought is that when you reference aloe vera gel on the internet, they're referencing usually studies that use the whole leaf. And we know that the external part of the leaf has aniline that is a laxative. So most of the studies that were conducted that they were talking about kind of invalidated somewhat the aloe vera gel, because a laxative is good when you're constipated, but it not necessarily is very good when you're trying to get optimal health. And so one of the things that was unique to Rodney and Mike is that you're just getting that internal fillet, so to speak, without the external thing. And you have to have a big plant to do that. You know what I mean? You can't do that with little plants. You got to do it with big plants. So when you're doing that harvesting in that manner, I don't know what percentage, but quite a bit of the plant is thrown away because you could only use that inner fillet. And so there was a part of that research that I realized, well, that's because they're using the whole leaf, and they're creating a laxative study, on aloe vera gel.
Yeah, the one study that I'm familiar with where all the medical doctors have concluded that aloe vera causes cancer based on this study, the aloe vera used in that study was outer leaf only.
Yeah.
And this study specifically mentions aloe vera extract, and it was in the time frame when people were trying to bottle the outer leaf to sell as laxatives, which kind of upset the three-letter organizations, FDA,
yeah,
NIH, and now we're competing with the pharmaceuticals, who essentially pays their salaries. So they didn't like that, so they developed this study. And when you give rats so much irritant, the cells that make mucus in their intestines are going to have to adapt so they can produce more mucus. And they do that by growing in size. And at some point in time, we're going to call that adaptation, that increase in cellular growth. At some point in time, it's called cancer.
Mm-hmm.
It's the expected outcome when you give an animal so much irritant.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Back to our story.
Okay, now in the US alone, there are 600 different species of aloe. Of all these, Rodney wanted to find the most efficacious one, the best of the best, and find it he does one particular variety called Barbadensis Miller. So Rodney starts a company to produce this aloe, leveraging his military connections to get his funding. Remember, this is the time after World War II, during the Cold War. One of the biggest concerns of the military was what to do if there's a nuclear war. How do you treat radiation burns? So then we have this picture of a guy with a military aloe plant, thanks to AI. Okay. No stranger to aloe's burn healing qualities, Rodney manages to convince the military to sign a contract to supply them with the world's best aloe vera gel. One small problem: the military doesn't just want a little bit, they want a lot, as in a steady supply of 55-gallon drums. Their thinking was, in case of nuclear war, bombing victims would wash themselves down multiple times a day with buckets of aloe vera gel to heal their radiation burns. So now Rodney has to figure out how to mass produce aloe vera gel. And then there's another problem. His customer is not interested in the whole leaf. It turns out the outer portion of the leaf, actually the sap just under the green outer rind, contains a compound called aloin that is a bit of a laxative. They are only interested in the gel from inside the leaf. No preservatives, nothing added, just the straight dope, pure gel fillet.
I'm going to pause there because we were talking about the radiation burns, and Rodney had kept some real solid documentation of radiation burns getting, I'm not going to say healed by aloe, but the healing accelerated significantly by aloe, and documented accelerating beyond what was expected. So that probably played into getting the contracts that he got with the government as far as, look, this is what it does for radiation burns. So, all right, back to the story.
Okay. This goes on for years and years. The contract is pure gold, you see, because the military insisted on it being preservative-free. So after a while, the gel inevitably goes bad. And when that happens, they just order more 55-gallon drums. I suppose they didn't have tons of walk-in freezers or inexpensive chest freezers. Okay, now back to the story. So Rodney is selling aloe gel like hotcakes until one day somebody in the military decides that nuclear war is not so likely after all. Or at least if it happens, radiation burns will be the least of our problems. So what does Rodney do with his industrial strength aloe operation? He needs to find a new market. This new market turns out to be terminal cancer patients for whom he develops a protocol. So now I'm calling this Going to See the Wizard. So now we come back around to that is John's story about Janice. She tells me I should meet this Rodney Stockton guy if I want to learn about aloe. And I said, well, he sounds really interesting. So I was able to arrange a meeting. When I got there, I found this 91-year-old man running around. I mean, he was hyperactive. He had way more energy than I did. Who was this guy? It was amazing. Here's that old guy running around. And then this is AI's interpretation of an energy healer. I thought that was pretty funny. Like a hippie in a lab coat. Okay, so I got Rodney to tell me a story about how he discovered aloe and found the best variety. And then how he developed his protocol for cancer patients. And I asked him what percentage of patients get better on your protocol. He said 50%. I couldn't believe it. That seemed impossible. If I hadn't had the walking proof of Janice, I don't think I would have believed him.
Let's pause on that one.
Yeah.
Because we are certainly not making any claims. That was what he probably felt was right at the time. I'm not sure he completely calculated that to be accurate. What I will say is when I had taken over this brand, I had my first stage 4 cancer patient on it.
Mm-hmm.
And she did very, very well and is, 15 years later now, still cancer free. She started out doing nothing but, changing her diet and adding 3 glasses of aloe a day. And then when she got crazy good results, went back to the doctors and they said, wow, where's all your cancer? Now we can actually help you with surgery. And it was at that point when she was almost, cancer free that she combined and did the integrative approach, medicine and natural. So for me, that kind of blew me away. And I started following up on a lot of Rodney's testimonials, assuming they would be gone. Assuming he got the testimonial when they were cancer free. That is not what I found. I found people saying if it wasn't for that aloe vera, I wouldn't be alive today. With that said, I'm still not going to say aloe vera cures cancer. I'm going to say aloe vera can be one of those things that supports your immune system and helps you to fight cancer. And now we actually have some science that explains why it would be a significant benefit. Even a chemotherapy company has determined that their chemotherapy works better when the patients get aloe with the chemotherapy. And the results were more than 3-fold better.
Yeah.
So that statistic, I don't know if it's accurate. I will say I've seen some crazy, amazing things, and then I've seen it not work. And I couldn't tell you one way or the other, do more people get well or not? It seems like yes, but maybe because I've only been here for 15 years, and I don't know, maybe some of these people will get cancer again. But it seems like it has to be studied more. And we're doing a disservice not researching this more. But who's going to pay for it, right?
Yeah. Well, one of the most difficult things in science is to study the human experience, because each person is so unique. Their belief system, placebo, nocebo, their faith in a higher power, or their fear factor. And so one of the challenges is that is that you take a human being, you're acting like it's a lab rat, and we're not. We're quite unique. And so when I would talk to different patients with aloe vera gel, I would tell them, you have the power to make this work 10 times better than it might in a lab study with rats, or you can make it not work. That's how powerful you are. So which side do you want to be on? What do you want to create? And so that's part of the experience when you talk about the scientific aspect of testing on human beings. Animals are much easier because we're assuming they don't, have the
they don't know.
They don't know. So it's like, yeah.
Well, that's it. I mean, I've seen acupuncture work on dogs. So a lot of naysayers are like, oh, it's just a placebo effect. You're having this needle stuck in you. And of course you're going to.
Because the dog's saying, oh, they're poking me with needles. This has to be good.
Yeah, it's like.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, dogs, they're like, what the, get that away from me. And it's like what they do with dogs, they just put one in that point, and they just, what is it, John?
The Ajna chakra. But
yeah. They just put one in there and the dog's like, ah. And then they just put all the other needles in and the dog's like, oh, this is great. Love it.
Yeah.
And it's like, they put needles in dogs and the dogs just like love it.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, there's got to be something there.
Yeah.
Dogs don't, they don't do placebo.
Yeah, interesting.
I mean, you try giving dogs some packaged dog food and then some raw meat. They're gonna know the difference. They're not like that. I'm used to this. So,
Yeah, they eat the dog food because they are starving.
Yes.
You enjoying the show thus far? One of the many health secrets that we have covered on the show is all around aloe vera, specifically drinking raw aloe vera. Our aloe vera has helped our customers effectively heal their gut, increase their intestine health, lower inflammation in the body, eliminate and/or decrease acid reflux, have glowing skin and hair, and so much more. Now, as a frequent member of our audience, you will be exposed to exclusive specials and coupon codes for the awesome products manufactured by Haley Nutrition. That's right, for simply being awesome and tuning in. You can get a mini discount to help you optimize and better your health. To see how we can help and support you on your health journey, tune into the episodes and listen for coupon codes that you can use at www.haleynutrition.com before you make your orders of raw aloe vera. Once again, it's www.haleynutrition.com. Now, back to the show.
So what was this cancer protocol that Rodney came up with? Well, he would have people drink 32 ounces a day. That's a whole quart. I thought, holy cow, that's a lot of aloe. I said, so you're basically having them pull a Gandhi. What do you mean pull a Gandhi? He said. So I tell him about when Mahatma Gandhi was working for peace between the Muslims and Hindus in India post-independence. He fasted on aloe vera gel, and I'm sure he was probably drinking a quart a day, right? So,
and I got to jump in here. From when I knew Rodney, it was 3 glasses a day, 24 ounces. Now, if I had a horrible cancer, would I drink a quart? Probably. Because of what I've seen it do and my understanding in how it works, to me, it seems like more is better. And that's my take on it. I know John Ortiz there might have another perspective, right?
Well, part of it is we have to look at the socioeconomic aspect of the journey, that each person is in a different So what one person calls affordable, another person says, no, that's too much. And unfortunately, in our current healthcare system, the number one cause of bankruptcy is healthcare. So part of that decision has to be weighing out the socioeconomic aspect of the individual. But I would tell people who had the socioeconomic abundance, they say, yeah, you drink as much aloe as you feel, necessary to get the results you're looking for. And for those that were financially stressed, I would say, well, you have to drink enough that you don't feel too financially stressed, but you feel like you're making progress.
So yeah, when I drink aloe, it's, I use a sort of intuitive approach, and if my body likes it, I drink more. And if my body's like, it's just like, it's too much or something, then I, cut back a little bit. But when I drink this aloe gel, like sometimes I'm just like more, especially like if I'm dehydrated or whatever. I trust my body. in that
For
regard.
those people that are in tune and understand that intuitive approach, I'm going to agree 100% with that.
Mhm.
Go with it.
Yeah.
And the good news is there's been research that shows that it would be beneficial at 1 ounce a day. And I know of 2 studies that used 1 ounce a day, showing a significant improvement. And then there's understanding of the mechanism that would make sense that more would be better.
Mm-hmm.
For instance, if that sugar molecule mannose is so unique that it binds to the cancer cells and they can't use it for energy, but they can't release it, and it makes it impossible for them to consume the sugar that they want, the glucose, for instance. Well, it seems that having more of that mannose circulating in the blood would be a better thing.
It'll crowd out the glucose. It'll crowd out your desire for glucose. So you'll have more mannose. So you'll be like, oh, I don't need sugar. My blood sugar's fine. So that way you can sort of push it if you're going for a certain effect.
But I still would want the intuitive approach combined with that, because at what point am I having too much?
One of the interesting, the film they made about Gandhi was directed by Attenborough, who was an atheist. And so here was an atheist that was trying to do an interpretation of someone's life. So he was really focusing on the things but I would have loved to have seen, Gandhi slamming some aloe vera gel down and say, food of the gods.
Is that really a fast? Is aloe vera gel? Are you really fasting? It's a mono diet.
Yeah.
I have consumed a lot of aloe. In fact, when I would supervise the production, we would have multiple checkpoints throughout the day. And at a checkpoint, I would drink a cup of aloe because that's what I'm used to drinking in the morning. That's how I would start my day. So as I'd be at the facility during the harvest, having several checkpoints, maybe 8 checkpoints a day, that would have me drinking a half gallon of aloe a day. And I would do that for the week that I was there.
And if there was a laxative property, you would know.
I did not have the laxative property at all. I felt great, and it was a good experience. I didn't necessarily notice any more benefit than when I have a cup a day, but then at the same time, for the most part, I'm kind of a healthy guy, I think. So how, if you're not feeling bad, how would you feel better than feeling great?
Yeah.
So all right, let's go back.
Okay, so this is sort of where we leave off from Rodney's story. And to sort of sum it up, this is what we're going to try to do. I found this app, the AI app called Suno, and it makes songs, sort of mediocre songs, but they're really, really funny. They make songs out of prompts or text that you put in. So I created I took this story that we wrote together, and I put it into ChatGPT and had it write some lyrics. So I took those lyrics and put them into Suno and had Suno write a song. So I came up with 2 that I really like, but we can play one of them perhaps. So because of the way the lyrics got emphasized, I called the first one Food of the Gods and the second one Drink Deep the Gel. And they're both sort of a prog rock sound. That Suno is a little bit limited in genres. There's only so much you can do. I've struggled with it to get it to do what I wanted. But these are pretty funny. You don't have to play the whole thing.
I'm going to attempt to play a snip.
Okay.
And for anyone who wants to hear the whole music, I'll make sure there's a link to it in the description.
Okay, let's see what happens if I do this. This might be bad, but let me try.
food of gods turned dark to bright. Frozen jugs in freezers stacked. A life unpure, no health detract. Morning sips, night's healing balm. A drink of life, restoring calm.
We're gonna need to put the words on the screen for that.
A tale retold of peace and chill, of
Kind of fading off though.
oh, okay.
Yeah. The audio is not going to be good enough there. It is pretty cool though.
Yeah, too tinny.
Yeah. And we'll bring out the.
Well, she can get the audio from the Substack, but I can also send the audio file to you guys.
Yes.
and the lyrics.
Yeah.
So I'll just do
Absolutely. And the music video?
that.
That'd be fun to make.
You're getting it right now.
Starring Mike, John, and John. Yeah. Oh, that's good. This is good. That was fun.
We'll work on it.
Okay, and there is a survey.
Oh, yeah, about the songs.
Yes, because we have different versions.
Now, the reason there's no votes is because I added this in recently, and all the people who read the article already read it. So,
Okay. and well, you know, the first one, and let me go back here. I'm going for I didn't hear the other one yet, but I'm going to go with the first option because that's my kind of music.
Well, they're both that type of music.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah.
It's that 1970s
Prog rock. Yeah.
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 Stadium. Drink deep the gel, my friend.
I like it. And I see that people can put your email address right there and hit the subscribe button.
Or order some aloe.
Do you have a link in here somewhere to order aloe?
Yeah, it's at the bottom.
Yeah.
At the end of the article.
Okay. We will have aloe sometime in March. And that's coming up.
I could put like links everywhere in the article, like order now. Act now.
Now how much would you pay?
You know how much, yeah. Standing by.
Yeah, we price gouging when we have our limited supply, right? Hey, we didn't do that at all. We could have, but we did not at all. We tried to get it to as many people as we could because people are really relying on us, and it's a horrible thing running out. First time in 15 years, but yeah. So what do we got here? What's first experiments?
Okay, so speaking as John again, so I'm almost sold on this aloe thing, but first I need to do an experiment of my own. I buy a 5-gallon bucket containing 4 gallons of frozen gel. I have to thaw it out, put it into smaller bottles, and then refreeze it because without preservatives, the shelf life is limited. Now I have both my refrigerator and my freezer chock full of aloe vera gel. Working with my clients, friends, and family, we found ourselves chasing every kind of gut issue you could think of, from diarrhea to constipation to irritable bowel syndrome. We were improving all of these conditions. Back then, we didn't know about the microbiome. We didn't even know why the aloe worked. We just called it the food of the gods. Unbeknownst to us, it turns out a number of different civilizations referred to aloe that way. We were consuming vast quantities of the stuff. Well, maybe not military-grade quantities, but still, it wasn't cheap. So I went back to Rodney and I asked him, suppose you're not a terminal cancer case. What's the minimum daily dose one should take? He said, well, if your goal is general wellness, we recommend 8 ounces a day or 1/4 of the cancer or Gandhi protocol. So part of me is a minimalist, and the minimalist or cheapskate, that's my editor note.
I'll accept that analysis.
So the minimalist in me says 8 ounces. I wonder if you could do it with less if you figured out how to consume it in the most efficient way. So I immediately cut it in half to 4 ounces a day, but taken in divided doses of 2 ounces first thing in the morning and 2 ounces at night before bed on an empty stomach. This makes a lot of sense to me.
It makes a lot of sense to me. Spreading it out, you'll probably make better use of it. Have we proven it with science? No. But it does seem to make sense.
And there's a certain value that because each person taking the aloe had a different experience, and I would have a couple that I would show the aloe vera gel, and one person would say it tastes like water, and the other person said it's the bitterest, slimiest thing I've ever tasted in my life, and they'd have this argument of how aloe vera gel tasted. So each person was unique, and part of that is once you realize the medicinal, the therapeutic aspect, then I guarantee you one thing: it tastes better. When you really start believing in what it's doing for you, it starts improving. I think it tastes like water personally. My son does too. We just drink it like, well, okay. But
I think the same thing is about kale. Like if you think it's good for you, you start to love eating it.
Yeah.
But if you think it's rabbit food, then it's just not going to work for you.
Yeah.
We used to do trade shows, and we would introduce the aloe to people, and we'd have a bottle, and I'd always give it a shake, and I'd pour some out in front of the person, and they'd drink it, and some people would go, "Oh, this is so bitter," from the same bottle, because our bottles, one bottle to the other, can be different, but from the same bottle that I shook up, so it's all well dispersed. The next person goes, "How can I drink this?" Next person goes, "This tastes like water."
Yeah.
It's all where your palate is, and you can shift it really easily. So if you eat sugar, you shift towards the sweet, and everything healthy tastes bitter. If you cut out sugar and you start eating more bitter foods, gradually bitter stuff tastes fine. All of a sudden you're drinking black coffee and eating kale, and then you have something sweet and it's like, oh, that's terrible. It's so sweet. Oh. I learned this as a kid when I was at summer camp, and there was a kid there from England, from Britain, and his mom shipped him some British M&Ms. And so we all tried one, and it was like, where's the sweetness? Where's the sugar? They don't put enough sugar in the British M&Ms because their palate is all totally different. They're drinking bitter beer, they got the bitter beer, we've got the sweet beer, it's like, it's a whole different palate. And you can shift your palate. You just have to be diligent about it. And I've done it before. So I've shifted all the way to the bitter, all the way back to the sweet, all the way back and forth.
But, interestingly enough, in Ayurveda, there was the 6 different tastes.
Right.
And they would say to be optimally healthy, you would have to take those tastes and taste each one every day in kind of an ideal state. So there was a benefit of tasting bitter or sour or astringent or sweet.
It balances
or salty.
The doshas.
Yeah. But what's interesting in current people, when people take a capsule and they swallow it and they don't taste it, in traditional Ayurveda, that was not the ideal scenario, that you would put each one in your mouth and you would taste each particular taste. And once you're feeling the health benefits of what you're doing, then everything starts tasting better, because then you realize, okay, if I have to learn to enjoy bitter or sour or astringent, it's the price you pay.
That's how Triphala works. Is it tastes horrible?
Yeah, it does
for a while until you sort of get used to it. Get to a certain point where it doesn't taste that bad anymore. It's just really.
Well, that's why I want people to also be connected to how they feel.
Yeah.
For instance, if you're playing sports and you eat inflammatory foods, and you actually realize, I'm sore when I eat ice cream, but when I'm eating vegetables, I'm not. You start liking the vegetables and disliking the ice cream. Mm-hmm. That makes you inflamed and in pain. Yeah. So, when I eat this food, I crash. But when I eat this food, I have good energy and clear thinking. Mm-hmm. Well, don't you start favoring those foods? Every time you eat this, you're going to crash and pass out. And aren't you planning on doing this later today? You sure you want to eat that now?
Yeah. Yeah.
And you start preferring the foods that make you feel good. So,
one of the things, my son, he's on the autistic spectrum, but he's high functioning. And he quickly put together the idea that if he drank more aloe vera gel, he could eat anything else and it wouldn't have an ill effect on him. And so he would say, if he felt like he was coming down with something, he'd pound a bunch of aloe vera gel, and then he'd start saying, hey, this stuff, forgives all sins, so to speak, about everything you want to eat. And I said, well, that's not really the goal, but
it's the antidote.
We have a problem.
Yeah. And I had a similar experience with a friend of mine who I met from Los Angeles. He said he had a lactose intolerance, and he said drinking the aloe vera gel, he was able to reintroduce the dairy products. And I think, I don't know if that's the best message that you're trying to But, in their case, it was a way to do the things they wanted to do and not have to pay the full price.
It's the antidote to pizza.
I've heard it's the antidote to too much alcohol. Joan used to say that not only did it, prevent hangovers, but it would sober people up.
Interesting.
I don't know if that's the case. I've never tried that. If I'm drinking, I don't want to be sober. There's a reason I'm drinking, right?
Well, maybe it's the bitter flavor. Maybe it's like so bitter and like.
All right.
Okay.
Or maybe it's the mannose that blocks the effect of the alcohol sugars.
Yeah, interesting.
Okay, so after a few years of our experimentation, aloe starts showing up everywhere. Every health food store has it. Grocery stores have it. You can get it online. Everyone's got it, right? So I started thinking, well, this fancy aloe costs a lot and ties up my freezer and refrigerator. And maybe these other products, they usually use a preservative, usually citric acid or something like that. I said, but I'm not applying it on my skin for burns, so a little citric acid won't hurt. So here's a, picture of aloe vera in the store. And that is true. There's it's easy, it's convenient. So anyway, so now
can I jump in on this?
Sure, of course.
Yeah.
And help me with this one, John, because I think we're going to be on the same page.
Yeah.
Fruits and vegetables have naturally occurring enzymes. And an enzyme digests. An enzyme breaks down molecules. And in the case of aloe vera, after a period of time, it is going to shake and splash like water as the enzymes, once you turn it into a drink, the enzymes are kind of released. They're going to work breaking down the mucopolysaccharides, a polysaccharide, many sugars, polysaccharide, many sugars. Aloe is many sugars, the mannose sugar molecule, not the glucose sugar. That's important. So the enzymes are breaking down this very complex molecule into a bunch of simple sugars. The only thing we know of that will not even stop it, but slow it down significantly is freezing it.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, I've froze aloe that was very, very thick. And 6 months later, after being frozen, I thaw the bottle out and it's a lot more drinkable. It's not as thick. I have aloe that was so thick when I first made it, blended it up from my backyard, that there's a TikTok video of me drinking a glass of aloe without using my hands. I started with a full glass of aloe, started sucking it from the top all the way down to the bottom of the glass till it was gone. It was that thick. But I wasn't able to do that after it was frozen for about 6 months.
Mm-hmm.
It was still very thick, a lot of the mucopolysaccharides intact. But after a period of time, it's going to splash like water. That's why the other brands that sell aloe vera gel, they sell it as a gel. When you look at the ingredients, you'll see something such as carrageenan added as a thickening agent, trying to mimic that gel again. Now, I've often said, this isn't the first time I'm saying this, you may have heard it before, aloe vera is like intimacy. Even when it's bad, it's still pretty good. I'm not going to take away from the store brands that are on the shelves there. It's not that they aren't good for you.
Yeah.
And sometimes if that's all that's available, maybe that is better than nothing. But there's no way that it can compare to what's in the plant, the mucopolysaccharides. And we, as far as I know, are the only brand that still has mucopolysaccharides.
Yeah.
That is the word of the day, mucopolysaccharides.
Well,
and I wish I had put that into the lyrics of the song.
See where it comes up. But a little bit about food science. A guy named Birdsong, he basically developed the ability to flash freeze food. And, growing up, I thought, oh, that's not good. It's frozen, stuff like that. But in essence, it was actually better because he could take a fruit, let it get to ripened state, flash freeze it. And so when you were eating it, you weren't eating something that was green that kind of ripened unnaturally. You were eating the ripe fruit. So in other words, when you flash freeze something, you slow down the thing, but you actually freeze it in that state. And so one of the things I tell my clients is that you want to keep it as cold as you can, as long as you can, even doing a partial thaw, because first of all, the taste will change a little bit as it sits in the refrigerator. But there's the component of freezing something keeps it in that state for as long as you can, and that's what really was unique. My experiment with other aloes, first of all, I would look at that like, why are they putting a thickening agent? I said, oh, they're diluting it or something of that nature. But you'll hear the next part of the story. A good friend of ours, Gary, and I'll let Jonathan come in.
So wait, so this guy, the flash freezing guy, is named Birdsong?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, wait, not Birdseye?
Oh, Birdseye, that was. I might.
Isn't that the company that?
Yeah, I think it's Birdseye.
Okay, now we got that straightened up.
Yeah, it was Bird something.
Like I feel like this Native American guy saying, I think if we flash freeze the best, Mr. Birdseye.
Yeah,
interesting.
Yeah, do you want to say anything about the way you freeze the aloe, Mike? Or
yeah, well, we try to get as cold as fast as we can, and this is something that actually I added after our first harvest, because when I had taken over, we were under the gun to get aloe. There were literally 7 buckets of aloe left. And that first day, someone came in to buy one of those buckets. And I knew they were going to be gone in just a couple days. Within a week, we had a new container from the Dominican Republic. And well, maybe it was 10 days or so. But it arrived, and it wasn't frozen yet. It was cold, but it wasn't frozen. And because they were putting all of this aloe in a freezer all at the same time, when you add things that are not cold into a freezer, you're supposed to do like maybe 15% of the freezer space at the max. But they were filling this thing up. And essentially, it was like adding a heater into the freezer.
Right.
So it couldn't get cold fast enough. We added a chiller and a heat transfer unit, which is essentially a heat transfer unit is like 110 feet of stainless steel piping that the aloe goes through, and it's going back and forth in a canister that has cold liquid circulating on the outside of the pipe. So the aloe's inside the pipe, cold liquid on the outside of the pipe in a canister to contain it. So the aloe goes in one end at the field temperature, which might be 90 degrees. And it comes out the other end at 50 degrees into the containers that go into the freezer. So we're able to get it near freezing as it's going into the container. And now the freezer's not struggling like filling it up with 90-degree field temperature.
Yeah.
So problem solved.
There you go.
As a thank you for being a fan of the Dr. Haley Show podcast, throughout March of 2025, enjoy 10% off your entire purchase at HaleyNutrition.com. The coupon code is HOPEFUL, HOPEFUL, because we are hopeful to have aloe vera back in stock before the month is over. In the meantime, we thank you for your patronage of our other products. Consider combining this coupon with our already discounted and on sale bundled products. And enjoy the rest of this podcast. Who's Gary?
Gary.
Yeah, I knew Gary.
Yeah.
Okay, so I reluctantly switch over to the abundant commercial aloe. 17 years go by, and aloe is the last thing on my mind. Then one day, my client and good friend Gary came in complaining of stubborn IBS. Some days it's better, some days worse, but it never goes away completely. I told him to just pick up some aloe vera gel at the health food store. Just make sure it doesn't have any preservatives in it. Also,
Gary had irritable bowel syndrome. That's the IBS.
Yeah.
Also, I added, try not to get one that contains a thickening agent. A lot of aloe vera gel wasn't pure or full strength. They would filter out the fibrous elements, which we now know are mucopolysaccharides.
Yep.
Making a watery substance. And then they would add a thickener to turn it back into the gel that people were expecting. Oh, here's John again. Oh, and one more thing. Don't get a whole leaf preparation because the outer portion of the leaf contains aloin, which is a laxative. This issue with whole leaf versus just the gel is what makes some of the aloe information online of questionable validity. You see, they don't always control for the aloe in, and so they conclude that aloe is a laxative. So you hear that it is great for constipation, but otherwise not advisable. Okay. Suffice it to say, all these caveats and warnings weren't making Gary very happy. Instead of a solution, I was just giving him more problems to solve. So Gary threw down the gauntlet. What is the absolute best aloe gel on the market? A long dimmed light bulb came back to life in my brain. I couldn't believe he asked that question because a long time ago, there was this company called Aloe One. I was sure it no longer existed, and Rodney had long since made his transition. Unless, of course, he managed to become immortal on aloe. But there was no way that his aloe product was still available on the market. And then Gary surprised me. Let's look it up. So we looked it up online and found out that a chiropractor by the name of Michael Haley had taken over Rodney's aloe business and had some for sale. I think I want to order some, Gary said. And I said, well, shoot, if you're going to order some, I guess I'll order some too. So we start looking at the product. The cheapest option was to buy one 5-gallon tub, which is 4 gallons of aloe. But I knew that it would be too labor intensive to thaw and split up. So we settled on the half-gallon jugs, which is 58 ounces of aloe. Gary says, okay, how many are you going to order? They had a deal where if you ordered 2, you got a certain price. And if you ordered 4, you got a better price. And if you ordered 8, you got the best price. I said, oh, we have to order 8 because it's like a fine wine and I don't want to spend more than I have to. So I actually was around. I remember all this happening. So I was actually there. Okay. So we placed the order for 8 jugs. No idea how it's going to actually show up because by this time we're living in the San Francisco Bay Area all the way on the West Coast. But the next day, Gary called me up and said, I really don't need 4 jugs. And I said, yeah, I realize that. I'll take whatever you don't want. You want 2 or just 1? And then I'm joking and said, if you want 0 jugs, I'll take all 8. Well, the next day, Gary called me up and said he'd reevaluated his finances and decided he would take me up on my offer and not order any jugs and let me have all 8. He would just try a little sample from my stash. Now I'm thinking, what just happened here? I said to myself, oh my God, Holy Spirit has just put me back in the aloe business. Because if this guy hadn't walked in and asked for the best aloe in the world, I wouldn't have thought about it. And if he hadn't said he wanted to order some, I wouldn't have ordered it. And then he backs out of the order, leaving me with a total of 3.6 gallons of frozen aloe gel in transit.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah.
This is fate.
Yeah, it is. It is.
And yes, we have price breaks when you buy more bottles. Why is there only 58 ounces in a half gallon? Because when it's frozen, it takes up more space.
Yeah.
Why is there only 4 gallons in a 5-gallon bucket? Because when it's frozen, it takes up more space.
Mm-hmm.
And that space, it's the size of 5 gallons when 4 gallons is frozen. All right, now here's the fun part. You're gonna have to break it to the wife.
Yeah, that's good.
Right. Okay. Back in the biz. So I call my wife, who had been part of the original aloe experiment back in Florida all those years ago. Okay. So here goes the conversation. Hey, honey, guess what? I ordered some aloe vera. The phone goes dead quiet because she is waiting for the other shoe to drop. What do you need? Well, I need the freezer for a couple of days. Absolutely not. She was unwilling to, once again, donate the household freezer to the aloe cause, but she was willing to fund the purchase of a chest freezer, the kind hunters use to store a whole carcass of game meat. Turned out to be one of the best investments I've ever made. Instead of playing Tetris in your little freezer compartment, you just throw everything in there and it never seems to fill up. So the 8 jugs of aloe gel come in and I put them in my new chest freezer. Now I meditate and ask for spiritual guidance because I have no idea how to sell this aloe. And what came to me was I would thaw out 1 jug and then split it into smaller 8 or 16 ounce bottles and let people buy smaller quantities more frequently. People like Gary. But in my quest for the ultimate aloe experience, I also wanted to avoid plastic. Glass is far superior, but not when freezing is concerned. See, when you freeze aloe, it expands even more than water. So refreezing aloe in a glass container is problematic because the glass can break. And not just crack, but shatter all over your freezer. So I gave up on that idea and sold smaller amounts of aloe, already thawed, or else the whole jug in a frozen state. Turns out my clients loved it. They said things like, "Oh, this is great stuff. I feel amazing when I take it." Their excitement was contagious, and within a week, I had sold all 8 jugs of this aloe gel. I was surprised it sold that quickly. Then the question started, when are you ordering more? I hadn't planned on it, so I replied, "Oh, I wasn't going to." They shot back, "You can't hook us up with the good stuff and then cut us off." And I thought, what have I become? Some sort of drug dealer only for health food? So I ordered another 8 jugs. This time, everyone who bought smaller bottles upgraded to the full half-gallon size. Those 8 bottles were gone in 3 days. In just 10 days, I had sold 16 bottles of aloe gel to my clients, friends, and family. That's when I thought that maybe I had stumbled upon a side business. So I called Mike Haley, the aloe-slinging chiropractor, to introduce myself. He was surprised to hear from me because I was, in his words, old school. I mentioned that I knew Rodney from 17 years back and told him the story. Out of morbid and scientific curiosity, I asked Mike what happened to Rodney. He said Rodney had been working late one night, tripped, hit his head, and passed away from a cerebral hemorrhage. And we have a comment. Now it said he had a heart attack. So there's a little bit of debate over this. But this is what John remembers. So This is John's story. And he's sticking to it. Okay. So I responded, "No, I don't think so. I think Rodney's guardian angel was chasing him for 96 years, finally caught up and said, 'We're done here. We're going home.' Then he tripped him." I made a picture of that. Anyway, so I asked Mike Haley about getting wholesale pricing. Mike explained that he only offered wholesale prices to someone with a clinic and a freezer on site. I told him, "Well, I've got a little healing center here in the Bay Area." What's funny is that when you say Bay Area, people have different interpretations. In the Northeast, they think of Boston. In Florida, it's Tampa Bay. But in California, it's San Francisco Bay Area. When I told Mike, he got excited. "Oh, we don't have anyone in Tampa Bay." But I clarified that was in California. There was a pause, and then Mike said, "California? We sell more aloe gel in California than in any other state." That didn't surprise me. California is home to 1 in 8 Americans. People here tend to be health conscious. So it made sense that aloe gel would sell well. Mike told me to look at the map, and sure enough, there I was, one of the few aloe gel dealers on the West Coast. That's how I got into the aloe gel business. Over time, it grew. People from San Francisco and beyond came to me to buy aloe gel. The business connected me with people who wanted to discuss healing, health, and wellness. It also gave me a chance to refine my knowledge, how aloe gel works, why it works, and how to use it more effectively. To this day, I don't think I found any substance more healing to the gut than aloe vera gel.
Yeah.
Many scientists believe 60 to 90% of your immune system resides in your gut. Healing the gut to me is the key to healing the immune system. I take aloe vera gel daily, and my son would drink it like water. He said, "The more I drink, the better I feel. I don't get sick when I drink this stuff."
And now there is no aloe.
We drank it all.
There's no aloe.
The Californians drank all the aloe.
We're building up an appreciation. It's like the calm before the storm. So I think it's good for everybody to go off things occasionally, just to see what you're at with it and without it. And that the reboot that you're experiencing will hopefully lead to more aloe vera gel production. So it's not just getting back to status quo, it's getting back to the point where you can actually get more aloe vera gel. And that, because I was always concerned if people who are battling health issues really found out the effectiveness of aloe vera gel, would production be able to handle the demand? And so that was one of my concerns over the last couple of years. And now that's being resolved by a forced change. So, there's a part where, in Paul says in Romans 8:28, he says, "And we know all things work for good for those of the called according to his purpose. For as many as he foreknew, to them he gave power to become the sons," and I say daughters of God. And so what you say is whatever you're going through, it's good. You got to just see the silver lining and the things that are going on that are going to allow you to get to a different level of, success.
But if your recommendation goes viral on social media and you can't get yours, then is that the right thing to do? You got to make sure you've got your supply first before you start recommending it.
My wife and I are rebooting in a different way.
Okay.
We actually, do I even dare say, we're switching farmers. And I think one of the reasons he retired is because we had a batch that wasn't acceptable.
Huh.
And the bacteria counts were too high.
Mm-hmm.
So my wife and I are drinking the stuff that we can't sell. I can't sell it with a good conscience.
Yeah, we call that probiotics.
Yeah.
call it probiotic aloe. Interesting.
Which bacteria?
Yeah. Here's the interesting thing about bacteria is that it grows in Antarctic ice, the coldest place on Earth, and it grows on the walls of volcanoes. So bacteria grows everywhere, and so
freezing doesn't stop that. Freezing doesn't kill it. It doesn't. It slows it down.
It does slow down. Yeah. And here's the thing. Now we're all into probiotics. What are probiotics? Bacteria.
Yeah.
So growing up, we always said bacteria was bad. That was just like, okay, we have to get it.
Germ theory.
Yeah, germ theory. And so one of the things now we're appreciating is there's good bacteria and there's bad bacteria. So one of the diagnoses is dysbiosis, was a disproportionate amount of bad bacteria to good bacteria. But I read in one of the books that 99% of the bacteria is good. And I'm thinking, 99% of bacteria is good. If you had a planet and you had 99% of the humans that were good and 1% that was bad, you know what you'd call it? You'd call it heaven. Because you'd say that got that one seed. So
what's that 1%? Is it weaponized?
So I know that this is a reboot, the age of aloe. Like we're finding ourselves in a kind of an uncomfortable time, but it's also a time of major healthcare transitions in this country.
Yeah. And, for us, we see it being a really good thing for us. We're going through a challenge, and I already see it working out for the good, and us coming out stronger with an even better product. So patience, and soon we will be supplying the United States with the world's best aloe vera again.
Yeah, one of my goals is to tell this story and have it in every alternative cancer treatment place. Just to spread that news from the aspect of the legacy of Rodney Stockton and my personal journey with that endeavor, but also just to realize that it should be on everybody's radar, I don't think there's. I used to have this argument with a physician I worked with that, she thought aloe vera was cooling, so it wouldn't be good for certain doshas. But my point is, I consider it tridoshic because it's good for all the doshas because it starts and ends with gut health.
But what kind of aloe, right? What preparation of aloe? What variety? What species of aloe was that based on? Because I remember learning that aloe vera was really cooling, and it's if you need digestive fire, it's like the opposite of what you need. But I don't experience that. I don't drink a bunch of aloe before I'm about to eat a steak or something. Yeah, that doesn't make sense because it's cold and cooling, But I don't think it's gonna, upset my dosha. Upset the dosha cart.
I think you should do a videotape of a semi-frozen 55-gallon drum of aloe, and you're doing the submersion in the aloe.
The aloe bucket challenge.
The aloe bucket challenge.
It's funny because, today's the day we shut our freezer off, and the only thing that is in there is aloe that we have to get rid of because it's part of the batch that didn't pass. So I could do that. I have to get rid of a whole bunch of it. I've got, a pallet of buckets in there that has to go.
Got to take a bath, as they say.
Yeah.
Got to take a bath, as I say, financially.
So, let me see. That's
But
4
what
times 36, we got 144 gallons of aloe. My chest freezer will probably hold about 50 gallons. Yeah, that could be a good ice bath.
but you'd want to drink it afterwards. You're not going to throw away any aloe gel. I just
No, it's just a cold plunge. It's the aloe plunge.
yeah.
Yeah.
And if you came out with the Fountain of Youth, you'd have something. He's like, hey, maybe that's what Ponce de Leon was looking for in Florida. An ice plunge in aloe.
I'd love to get
a whole new meaning to the word ice plunge.
Yeah.
But yeah, it'd be
Cold
interesting to get
plunge.
the report. What
Cold
does it feel like to take a bath in aloe?
Yeah.
Slippery.
Yeah, watch out getting out of the tub.
What do we got here as we're wrapping things up? What's aloe and triad? Is there? Let me see. I'm going to see how much we got here. Oh, okay.
That's it. Yeah.
All right. Aloe and the triad. So as a minimalist, a cheapskate. Yeah, I want to use the least amount for the maximum benefit. That philosophy is part of what I call triad healing. It focuses on 3 aspects: physical healing, emotional healing, or mental emotional healing, and spiritual karmic healing. Triad healing also emphasizes 3 principles: safety, effectiveness, and affordability. The first 2 were no-brainers. Affordability, though, meant different things to different people. To make aloe gel affordable, I aim to use it efficiently. I joked with my wife, if I die prematurely, put this on my epitaph: he should have drunk a little more aloe vera gel. Because he was being too cheap, trying to get away with less, and if just a little bit more. Yeah. From my experience, the best way to use aloe gel is what I call the Gandhi method. Sip it throughout the day, especially on an empty stomach. Well, John doesn't eat anything all day, so that works for him. So basically you have to fast all day. Okay. The 2 most important times to take it are 1 in the morning after oral hygiene to set your digestion in motion, or as oral hygiene, just, do aloe pulling. Maybe we should try that.
Yeah.
Aloe pulling.
Why
not?
Yeah.
Okay. Because that, the mannose could crowd out, I don't know, sugar. I don't know, whatever.
Only in pulling, you usually spit it out, and this one you're going to swallow. So it's kind of like the swish before you swallow.
Yeah, but my theory was that when you were doing the coconut oil or any, you just swallow. You don't spit it out because
get rid of that bacteria.
Yeah, but even then, your stomach's ready. The stomach is a firewall. That's what it was designed as, to kill 99% of the bacteria. So if you're optimal digestion, remember we had that term cast iron stomach growing up?
Yeah.
And what it meant was you could eat anything and it wouldn't affect you adversely. And now if you ask millennials, what is a cast iron stomach? They don't even, they look at you like, what is a cast iron stomach? Your stomach's iron? And I said, no, it meant you could eat anything. And I think one of the goals in terms of a proper digestion system is you do start developing that firewall, and you start developing a cast iron stomach.
So here's where we talk about the unique palate that everyone has. Some people think it tastes like water. Other people find it bitter or slimy. I once worked with a cancer patient who struggles to drink 8 ounces a day. I pushed her, perhaps too hard, by asking, would you rather die than drink aloe vera gel? She paused and said, let me think about that. It was a cost-benefit analysis for her. For those who struggle with the taste, chefs I know have developed formulas to make it more palatable. However, in its purest form, without thickening agents or preservatives, aloe gel is most effective on an empty stomach. It also pairs well with intermittent fasting to quickly reboot the gut. To this day, I'll probably go to my grave drinking aloe gel. Maybe not enough, maybe too much, who knows? But one thing is clear, physical health is invaluable. If you lose your health, it doesn't matter how much money you have. This reminds me of an historical story. Alexander the Great once sought to conquer the world. His teacher Aristotle told him, first, go to the island of Socotra and conquer it. That's where the aloe vera is. Alexander did just that because he knew more soldiers died from infected wounds than from battle. They used aloe vera gel to treat injuries, preventing infection, and saving countless lives. To me, aloe vera gel remains a magical substance, whether used topically or internally, avoiding the whole leaf due to its laxative properties. It's been a life-changing tool for healing. For those looking for a pure, unadulterated aloe gel, it's worth the investment because health, after all, is priceless. We have a little survey on what people think about, what readers think about aloe. We have a link to a book called The Everything Guide to Aloe Vera for Health by Britt Brandon. We also have a way, if you're in the Bay Area, you can purchase Stockton Aloe one locally and just email John Ortiz for that. And if you want to order in bulk, or if you're not in the Bay Area and you can't find it through one of the registered dealers on the website, you can order it directly from Haley Nutrition when it's back in stock. And you get a special bonus offer. So here's a link here. And that's it for our
Aloe story.
That was our first article, and we have more on the site.
Very nice. And to the people that don't know what the cast iron stomach is, they won't know what this is either. A lot of people have said raw aloe gel tastes like drinking water out of a garden hose. The young kids have never drank out of a garden hose. They don't do that anymore. Us growing up in the 70s, who hasn't drunken out of a garden hose?
Yeah.
That's what you did.
Yeah.
You were outside playing with your friends and you were thirsty, ran to the hose on the side of the house, cranked it up, and
Yeah.
the water has changed. I wouldn't recommend drinking out of a garden hose these days.
No, I agree with that. Yeah.
Well, I enjoyed the historical review and your story, John. That was very, very cool. And the narration by Jonathan.
Yeah.
Awesome. And the excellent aloe vera music, which I'll make sure there's links to those songs too.
Yeah.
So people can jam out to the aloe vera jam.
The only time Barbara Densis Miller has ever been in a song.
In a song.
Probably.
And the only time Rodney was ever mentioned in a song, I'm sure.
Yeah.
That was pretty cool.
Yeah, it is.
Until next time.
Sounds good.
I hope you enjoyed that episode today on The Dr. Haley Show. Make sure to hit subscribe on whichever platform you are listening to this. If this episode made you think of someone, go ahead, take a screenshot, and share this exact episode with them. You can catch the show notes for this episode on www.drhaley.com. If you want to geek out with Dr. Michael Haley on other radical health topics, be sure to check out his YouTube channel, where he posts exclusive video content. All the details are at www.drhaley.com, and we can't wait to hang out with you on the next episode.